What's up, guys? Here with you with FC Wonderkid, episode 112. Here with my guy, Fredson. How are you?
I'm dizzy. I'm good. I'm dizzy, but we are entering into the transfer abyss or the transfer heaven. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, whatever way you look at it. I'm pretty sure today is transfers,
And
again?
more transfers.
And more transfers. There you go.
But
How are you, Alex?
I'm all right. I'm doing really well because, yes, I love this transfer game. David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano are dominating the feeds of every football fan on Twitter. On Twitter, that can see tweets right now because Elon ain't helping. Maintenance problems.
No, he's not.
But David Ornstein and Fabrizio, got to give kudos to those two because they are going bold in this transfer window. But you guys, go bold in the comments section. We want to see your favorite transfers of episode 112 in the comments section down below. But I think we must start. We must start the Premier League transfer talk, confirmed transfers, rumors, and top 4 expectations that need to land players like maybe Declan Rice. Declan Rice to Arsenal, the most expensive British player in the history of Britain. That is a statement by Arsenal to win the title. They beat Man City to land Declan Rice. So Arsenal are going bold. I got to start with them.
It makes a whole lot of sense to start with them. I am more impressed, maybe, or I am equally as impressed that Manchester City did not pursue until the end. I am actually shocked. And it shows a little bit of restraint, I guess, in Pep Guardiola's camp, that they don't get into this. But it also equally surprises me that it was Arsenal that said, no, there is no way in hell we are losing this one. And you know what? If you're going to go after somebody, Declan Rice has obviously shown his consistency, his ability to be at the top of the Premier League game for some time. He just needs the squad around him to show it. And Arsenal is showing some big ambition with this. And let's be honest, this is a third kind of season of incremental steps, or maybe exponentially incremental steps up by Mikel Arteta. And they're back in the Champions League. Yes, they led the Premier League for the majority of the season. And yes, they could have put their hands on the trophy this season, and it feels like an opportunity missed. But by all intents and purposes, they hit their goal last season of getting back to the Champions League. And now it's to show ambition, and ambition is Declan Rice and Kai Havertz. And, yell at me all you want. Yell at me all you want about Kai Havertz, but I still believe that Kai Havertz is going to be one of the signings of this particular offseason. I know it's early, but I believe he is going to be one of the signings because I believe that Mikel Arteta knows how to unlock what makes him special.
Better than Szoboszlai?
Well, Szoboszlai, oh man. Szoboszlai.
That Trent Alexander-Arnold duo with Szoboszlai, pinpoint passes. I don't know.
It makes me tingle just thinking about it. Szoboszlai, McAllister, backed up by Alexander-Arnold, maybe Fabinho. I don't know, but there is depth in that Liverpool midfield, and I don't know. It's tough, man. It's tough.
But going with what you said about Declan Rice, I completely agree. Mikel Arteta deserved the big splash to get Declan Rice of 121 million euros. Champions League football and competing against Man City, you must have options. Rice, Havertz, Odegaard. That's the midfield that is going to start. And Arsenal were desperate even more for Rice if Partey is leaving. So Rice, Odegaard, Havertz, Jorginho coming off the bench. Smith Rowe maybe coming off the bench. Fabio Vieira. So Arsenal needs adaptability and versatility. And another point, I think, with adding with, I think Arsenal have signed Havertz. They've signed Declan Rice. And I think they're going to get Julian Timber, which will give elite centre-back depth. Arsenal will have Julian Timber, Gabriel Magalhães, and Saliba that started last season, and like for another option, they have depth with Ben White. So Arsenal centre-backs for next season: Julian Timber, Saliba, Ben White, Gabriel Magalhães. That is Champions League competing too. They're ready, and that's what they need. So I'm happy with these first 3 transfers of Arsenal on my end. Just respecting that.
Right. But it's funny. Rice and Havertz, it's wonderful business. It's expensive business, but it's wonderful business as of right now. But I'm more impressed with what Liverpool has done and what they're going to do. I mean, if you're going to talk about me putting down a whole lot of money on, say, a team, and this really isn't that crazy money. This isn't, smart. This is smart money to put down here. But come on, Jurgen Klopp has already gotten the commitment to bring in who he wants to bring in with a midfield. If they shore up that defensive line, I honestly think like Liverpool and Arsenal can duke it out for second place next season. First? Yeah, well, it's going to take Manchester City slipping up, and frankly, I don't know until they prove to me that they are going to do that. We got to see what their incomings are because they have yet to even spend, except for Kovacic, which is like smart business, frankly. So I'm immensely impressed right now. Those early leaders, if we're talking about a horse race, the early leaders in the transfer wars of the summer definitely are Arsenal and Liverpool, in my opinion, at least when it comes to the Premier League.
I maybe see Chelsea. Chelsea are sticking to the plan. It's selling season.
Chelsea are offloading.
It's selling
Chelsea
season.
are offloading.
Exactly.
They have not yet shown that they can bring in somebody aside from Enzo
Nicholas
that will
Jackson.
have a day. But Nicholas Jackson is 1/2 of a year as much as I like him. I bet you weren't expecting that.
Well,
I love Nicholas Jackson.
But sticking with Liverpool, I just want to say, Klopp, it's his first full season with no Champions League football. And naturally so, FSG had to go bold with investment. And bringing in McAllister and Szoboszlai, that's the right moves that Liverpool have to do to be back in the Champions League. I fully believe the biggest competitor to Man City next season is Liverpool, baby. But I'm not sleeping with Newcastle because Newcastle, I still think they might go bold with spending more than 150 million this transfer window. I expect to see that. So, midfield options for next season. Liverpool in midfield will have Trent Alexander-Arnold, for me, ahead of Fabinho, but Fabinho more defensively. Then they have McAllister, Szoboszlai, Jordan Henderson, Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones still cooking. A great loan with Fabio Carvalho. I see Liverpool organized and with a clear intention of having a different season. Liverpool means business. I wanted to mention that. I can't decide with Szoboszlai. 70 million for Szoboszlai, release clause. McAllister, 35 million. 100 million. That's what FSG had to do from the start. And seeing them do that now, get a center back and a right back and things will change. Because Trent is a midfielder now.
But listen, then who's right back?
Exactly. They have to get another right back. They have to get a right back. Because of Trent.
But listen, I am going to say it. I'm going to say, the quiet part out loud right now. But Szoboszlai for 70 million, I understand you did what you had to do to secure the man. But that's a lot of money. And I am a little worried about injury proneness. He has shown with RB Leipzig. Now, every time he is in for RB Leipzig, they're a much better team. There's no doubt about that. I believe he led Leipzig. Even though he missed quite a bit of the season, he led Leipzig in chances created last season. Alexander-Arnold, I believe they are right around the same in terms of chances created. So they're going to be definitely cooking in that midfield. But Szoboszlai is not quite a question mark, but he does have that history. And 70 million, two times what it cost to bring in McAllister to not play Champions League football for a season. That is really, really interesting to me, but it does show intent. They had to overpay in order to get him in that particular context. Maybe a little bit like Arsenal had to overpay last season to get people in. So I understand it, but when it comes down to it, that midfield, that already addressing what was their insane weakness last year in terms of depth, that is huge. It's a huge intent dealt with for Jurgen Klopp as well. And it tells you everything you need to know. And if they get Kefren Turam, it's one of my, it might not be the best midfield yet because we have to see how they work together, but my goodness, it might be one of the more fun ones to watch.
If Fabinho
right?
ain't playing well, Kefri Turan would step in. Great defensive midfielder. And offensively, Liverpool, if there's no injuries offensively, Liverpool, they have insane options. Liverpool offensively has Luís Diaz, number 7 now. They have Gakpo. They have Mo Salah. And then on the bench, if they're not starting, Darwin Núñez and Diogo Jota. Now, that is firepower, and a lot of goals will definitely come from these 5 players. And then when you have Szoboszlai and Trent pinpoint passes, it's going to be great. I really believe that Liverpool, with Szoboszlai, he's going to be one of the top assisters in the Premier League with no injuries. People will be so impressed with the free kicks of this man. He's one of the best free kick takers in the world right now. I'll say that. Yeah. So Liverpool fans be hyped.
And what he means to Hungary, too, and what he's done for Hungary is absolutely impressive. And I got to say, what he's done at RB Leipzig, too, from moving on from Salzburg, he's gone up in that Red Bull, that Red Bull totem pole, if you will. But listen, Szoboszlai, I don't know how Leipzig do it every year, but they have to reinvent themselves every year. We haven't even talked about their best center back getting poached at some point in the future, potentially. Which we will in a little bit. But Szoboszlai and Nkunku, every year they have to reinvent themselves. You almost feel bad in some respects from a footballing fan perspective. But Liverpool are definitely the beneficiaries in this instance. And I do have to remind people, Liverpool, obviously, as they probably should have, they ended the year on an 11-game unbeaten streak. True. And a lot of that came down to a tactical switch. And am I smart enough to kind of walk you through what that is? No. But ultimately, what I do know is that these particular signings tell me that they're going to continue with that tactical overload of the midfield. And that Szoboszlai and McAllister partnership is going to be a massively, massively important part of this with Alexander-Arnold as well. So I'm excited, and it's nice to feel excited again by Liverpool.
It's right. I completely agree with you. And going with what you said with RB Leipzig, in this transfer window, RB Leipzig is sold Nkunku for 60 million. They've sold Szoboszlai for 70, and they might be selling Jorge Gvardiol for 100 million. That is 230 million done by RB Leipzig this transfer window, maybe. Bold deals. And if we count Konate and Upamecano with Szoboszlai, Nkunku, and Gvardiol, that is 300 million that they have done in recent sales. RB Leipzig from doing the right decisions in scouting and investing in the right players with development too. Nagelsmann was even there. Even coaches were developed in the RB Leipzig type, RB Leipzig management. So it's great deals. And I just want to say a top 5 list of most expensive British players ever. Declan Rice is now number 1, 121 million. Then Jack Grealish, number 2, 117 million. Number 3, Jude Bellingham, 103 million. Number 4, the biggest mistake, Harry Maguire, 87 million. And number 5 is Jadon Sancho for 85 million. I'm not going to say he's a flop, but this is the biggest season for Jadon Sancho to prove himself. This is the deciding season.
Well, I mean, he's already on the chopping block, is he not, Jadon Sancho?
I don't think he's going to leave this summer, Jadon Sancho. Personally.
Not even on loan? Not
on loan, too. I think Erik ten Hag needs a player like Sancho off the bench, minimal. Well, I'd like to see Garnacho big time stepping up this season for Man United. And I'm hyped to see in the preseason for Man United Garnacho and Amad Diallo. But Garnacho more. Garnacho's 19 now. Garnacho has his idol Cristiano Ronaldo playing with Messi in the national team. The ambition is very high. And with Champions League football, Garnacho knows that the world is watching. So at 19,
what would be a successful season for you for Alejandro Garnacho?
I'd say more. I'd say if he gets to 10 Premier League goals, Alejandro Garnacho at 19, that would be unbelievable. But if he gets 10 to 15 goal involvements in the Premier League, I think that's a good season by Alejandro Garnacho. Because other players should be stepping up more. That's why.
There is one thing to be said about that top 5 most expensive transfer list you just laid out for us. It's that the Maguire one and the Sancho one in 4 and 5, that likely is going to get rewritten by the end. They'll get kicked out of that top 5 by the end of this particular summer. Whether it's City's approach for Gvardiol, whether it's Harry Kane, somewhere in there, maybe potentially staying in the Premier League.
Expensive British players. Gvardiol.
That's what it was.
Harry Kane.
Okay.
But Harry
not
Kane,
Gvardiol, but Harry Kane.
He could. Yeah, Harry Kane definitely will be on this list.
He's gotta be.
But I think he'll be. But just saying with Man United, Harry Kane is an excellent bridge to say. They need a striker. Like, I understand. The new midfield of Man United with Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes, and Mason Mount is great with Eriksen subbed in. But they still need another CDM in case Casemiro doesn't play. And a striker must be the priority. Must be. But I already see Atalanta interested in another strikers like Gyökeres that's maybe going to Sporting. So they must be thinking of a reality without Rasmus Winter Højlund. And I think a Premier League team like Man United is knocking big time for him. So let's wait and see. Just wanted to get positive info.
Not for the $80 million price tag that they're throwing on Højlund. No. But we should probably tell people, the Mason Mount signing for Manchester United obviously tells you that they like what he does. They give him a shuttler. They give Manchester United a lot of flexibility in that midfield. I can see Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount doing good things together. But we also have to remember Erik ten Hag has been a long-time admirer of Mason Mount. You might recall that 5 years ago, Mason Mount was on loan at Vitesse, right? Part of the Chelsea loan army. Erik ten Hag wanted him then. So this was kind of like I want him. I'm going to get him. I'm going to do what I need to do. And hey, Chelsea were willing sellers. But you got to think, at least from a footballing heritage, from an academy player type of situation. I mean, a little tear came to my eye, and I'm not even a Manchester United or a Chelsea supporter per se, knowing that Mason Mount wanted to stay at Chelsea. He wanted to be part of this project. And now he's got to move on. And for them to move on internally, I don't know. Do you think this is going to blow up in Chelsea's face at all?
I don't know.
When it comes down to seeing Mason Mount all out for United?
Did he really wanted to stay? Or wasn't he accepted not getting more than $240K a week? Because that's
but based on the last 6 months of treatment per se, I mean, and the money that's being thrown at the other players that are coming in, there's got to be part of this fan base that say Mason Mount could have been a massive part of this project. It was decided months ago, and maybe due to contract negotiations, I understand that. But hey, United was willing to pay, and I could see him doing phenomenally. And here's the thing. Is it's way too positive, my mindset, in terms of thinking Mason Mount is going to cook under Erik ten Hag. It's way too positive for me to talk about that right now, that there's got to be some sort of rub here. Like, is it a match made in heaven, right? When it comes down to Mason Mount in that midfield. And I actually hope so for the guy, because
I think Mason Mount next to Bruno and Casemiro, with his work rate, I could see him maybe having more than 15 goal involvements in the Premier League. And his best season, I recall he had like 21, 22 goal involvements for Chelsea. So I do think we could see the best version of Mason Mount at Man United. And that's why he's going there. England national team is full of competition. Even a James Maddison's going to Tottenham. Mason Mount has to go bold for Man United to keep his spot as a starter in the English national team. And I think he's going to develop well. And there's another thing, too, that we got to say for Man United. It's De Gea is not extending. De Gea is not staying. Would you get Onana or Diogo Costa?
Well, right now, I mean, you got to go with recency effect here and say Onana. I think he's probably a step up. But in terms of the other names that I've heard listed in what they're talking about here, this is a more challenging transfer than probably anything else they're considering this season. Obviously, probably like a step, in my opinion, a step above what they need at striker, right? And those are the two things. So it's really interesting that they went for Mason Mount first, because I don't know if you do that unless you felt you already had the transfer funds necessary for you to go in there and be able to still secure the goalkeeper you 100% need and the striker you 100% need, right? So it's really interesting. And it's only sad to me that Manchester United hasn't been able to, say, offload those that they need to offload the same way Chelsea has been able to offload those that they need to offload and actually get a nice injection of cash in order to do that. So De Gea leaves not for value. De Gea leaves for free. And his next, it looks like he'll be catching the plane to Al Nassr, is what I'm hearing, right?
It's mad that the Golden Glove winner wins.
Yeah.
Like, no, doesn't win. It's mad that the Golden Glove winner leaves on a free the next season. That's happening at Man United. And that happens because Erik ten Hag doesn't think that De Gea fits the bill. In terms of ball distribution, definitely.
And wage bill. And
wage bill too, yes. It's true. And he has a big impact too in the locker room. I could imagine that too. And maybe now, Erik ten Hag, look, I think Diogo Costa would be solid for Erik ten Hag. But to get him, minimal 75 million to leave Porto. He's the most valuable keeper in transfer markets. That's mad, Diogo Costa, because he starts for Portugal and he was great in the Champions League for Porto. But just wanted to say, the most valuable 11 per transfer market in the world right now is Diogo Costa in goal, Afonso Davies at the left, Ruben Dias, Gvardiol at center back, and Hakimi at the right. And then the three in midfield, they have Valverde, Jude Bellingham, and Musiala, two players of Real Madrid. And then they have front trio, Vini, Mbappé, and Saka. No Haaland. Oh my days. Mbappé is more expensive than Haaland in the per transfer market. So I just wanted to say that because mentioning Diogo Costa too, which United must get him. Woo! But let's see the transfers.
United, I'll be honest. I mean, how hot is that over in Portugal? Because clearly, I have not seen a lick of Diogo Costa to Manchester United. But then again, we're not known for our football punditry. So I need to, okay. Oh, really? You've seen Chelsea too?
I've seen. What do you mean we're not known for? Like Diogo Costa?
Well, we're not known. We don't have a Fabrizio Romano over in the States here just yet. Tom Bogart's coming up. Nice little shout out to Tom Bogart. But no, we don't have somebody that is a direct beeline to understanding. I haven't seen any Diogo Costa to Manchester United rumors. So I'm excited to hear that.
And Chelsea, there's a lot of Chelsea Diogo Costa least interest. At least interest. And I do believe Chelsea are definitely looking for the goalkeeper position. Gaga Slonina is still developing, so they most definitely have to sign a goalkeeper. But wanted to say, players leaving Chelsea this season, they have Mendy, Koulibaly, Kovacic, Kante, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Mason Mount, Havertz, Pulisic, Azpilicueta, Ziyech. Come on, Ziyech, get those medical tests right. A lot of players leaving. 200 million made from all these players leaving. So, Todd Boehly, that's all the selling season. And Pochettino needs in midfield next to Enzo Fernandez, Moisés Caicedo. And seeing Mason Mount going to United, it just makes me much more confident that Caicedo is the #1 transfer target. But Brighton are going to ask Declan Rice numbers, so it could go to 100 million. And that is a bold deal because the contract will be like 8 years too. Like Nicholas Jackson even. 8-year contract.
It's ridiculous. And I think that they're about to pass something that's going to put a kibosh on that. There will be a rule change. But ultimately, I'm worried. It's time. I get Caicedo. I get, some of these names we're talking about. But you would think that they would have had their transfer targets kind of, rolled out considering how the last part of their season went at Chelsea. You'd think that they'd already have a few established players brought in if they knew that the outgoings were kind of in the bag and maybe the transfer kitty was set. And as of right now, nothing against these players. But as of right now, they're focusing very much still on their kind of collect the prospects, collect the Pokemon, and then they're going to loan them out like a Dewan Richards, right? The young Jamaican kid just scored his first Jamaican goal. He's now a Chelsea player. Diego Moreira, makes a whole lot of sense to bring him in, but he's not going to be touching the first team anytime soon. Angelo Gabriel, great talent. Probably not the one I would spend the money on, but Angelo Gabriel likely will be coming in for a very decent price. And then Nicholas Jackson. You and I have spoken about Nicholas Jackson quite a bit. I love him. I'm incredibly high on him. But as a finished product, we're talking about 6 months of outperformance right now for Villarreal. 6 months. And they spend 37 million on him. 37 million plus over 8 years. I get it, but do I think he is the finished 9 that they need right now? No, he is not.
I understand. I agree with that. I just think he's better than Havertz at 9. And for me, Havertz should 100% not be the first option for Chelsea. And for me, Nicholas Jackson, so the way I see it is Nicholas Jackson a better striker than all the other strikers that they had in the previous season? Yes, in my opinion. Havertz at false 9, I think it just didn't work out. It worked out with Tuchel for some seasons, but Nicholas Jackson will be better. So I kind of agree with you, but I do believe that Chelsea is going to be much better this season. And just like Arsenal, Chelsea must approach the transfer market to have key players for the future. Guarantees that Chelsea have in the next 3-5 years in their lineup. Enzo Fernandez, Reece James. These two are the only guarantees, and a Levi Colville if they manage to snatch him up and convince him to stay at Chelsea. These would be 3 key players. And just to have 3, that's not easy in the start of a rebuild too. So, and Chelsea players that they buy for the future. Diego Moreira, you said. Casadei, Kendry Paes, André Sancho, Angelo, like you said right now. So, they're investing for the future. Even Gaga Slonina, Malo Gusto. So many players.
Yeah, 30 million for Malo Gusto too. But a lot of those, I see that more of the City Football Group type of approach there, though. So a good majority of those guys are never going to see their way into the 11 based on what likely is going to be Bowley's expectation for moving up the table, right? Casadei might be close, but probably not. Like, I'd love to actually put together an 11 right now of that, and maybe we do that the next time. But my goodness, what was not quite a pinnacle, but a recent pinnacle in Chelsea, 2020, 2021, right? The Champions League win. I think we're down to what, 2 or 3 of the starting 11? 3 of the starting 11.
Yeah, only 3 players remain at Chelsea that won the Champions League in 2021, which is Thiago
and
Silva,
so many more.
Reece James, and Ben Chilwell. And being honest, Ben Chilwell and Reece James, those 2 are for the future and to stay, guaranteed. So for fullbacks, I think Chelsea are doing a good choice just keeping those 2. But Mason Mount is just sad. It's just sad. I understand. But like seeing the long scheme of things, I wouldn't be surprised if Moisés Caicedo becomes a better player in the Premier League than Mason Mount. If he's already.
We'll see. We'll see.
Well, he had a better season, most definitely. So it's like, I know Mason Mount,
but we're not going off like one season.
Moisés Caicedo in the Premier League might be better than the best Mason Mount that we'll see in the future in the Premier League, and I think Chelsea believe that's the case.
That's assuming Chelsea gets him. They
will. I believe they will, because just like Enzo, when they want a player, they get him.
It's just so sad to think that Brighton's going to get gutted again, and they actually have European.
Brighton.
They actually have European football.
But they're
My
happy,
goodness.
Brighton. What 2 players on a free that Brighton got? James Milner and Dahoud. Just like you said about Szoboszlai injuries, we hope Dahoud doesn't get a lot of injuries too, like he had at Dortmund. If they're in full potential, there's tremendous signings for the Premier League, and even João Pedro for Watford. Yes, he had glimpses of greatness for a youngster, but hopefully with the Zerbi ball makes guarantees happen. And I think that's what they're betting on. With Dahoud, Milner too as a veteran. I like those moves. I like what Brighton are doing.
And a goalkeeper is likely on the way in too, in the form of what we think is Bart Verbruggen. But we will see if that actually happens. But Bart Verbruggen obviously is one hell of a talent and was great for Anderlecht. And would do pretty well for Brighton. But Brighton have been down this road previously when they bought a very promising Dutch goalkeeper, Kel Scherpen, that unfortunately just fell by the wayside and nobody even really talks about him anymore. So it's just weird to look at Brighton's incoming right now and only see James Milner and Mo Dahoud. which speaks to what?
And João
They're
Pedro.
playing European. And João Pedro, yes, you're right. But it speaks to the fact that they are in new territory. They are going to have to fight multiple battles. They have multiple fronts now. They're playing European football. That's why the Milner Dahoud makes a whole lot of sense right now, because if you can get them and they buy into the project, they're going to have, I mean, Milner is just as much locker room as he is versatility on the pitch and wily veteran status, right? So I'm excited, but I think there is more to come with the Brighton. But right now,
But
they do have a shot to keep Caicedo.
No, I
They
don't
do.
think so.
It's not a large one, but they have it, and I am going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I hope that they can hold on to Caicedo at least one more year.
It's going to be a big season next season for Billy Gilmore at Brighton.
Yeah,
and Buenanotte.
huge.
I think those two players, since Moisés Caicedo for sure is going to leave, in my view, those two players have to step up big time. And then other youngsters, Enciso, Evan Ferguson.
Yep.
and without Levi Colville maybe too. I would love for Levi Colville to stay at Brighton personally, but I understand it's being hard. But seeing that Brighton, they left Cucurella go. They get Estupinian. One of the best left backs already in the Premier League. Look, I think Brighton are in good hands, and they're going to be bold in the Europa League. I think they're going to do a great campaign, in my view.
Well, you know who's extra bold right now?
Aston
Extra
Villa?
bold, right? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I felt the Unai Emery boldness.
Listen, Unai Emery knows who made him better, right? Made him better, made his job easier as a manager, and he brings him in. It's the king of transfers making sense. And after all that conjecture, all that prediction of what's his name, of Pau Torres coming to the Premier League for the longest time, right? It finally happens. And Unai Emery, man, has built one of the more enjoyable defensive cores, or more enjoyable spines in the Premier League as of right now. And I am here for it, because I think most people have forgotten Diego Carlos is still on this team. And yes, he's rehabbing from a major injury, and there's no guarantee that he comes back the same way he did when he was at Sevilla. But my goodness, Torres, Mings, Diego Carlos, Ezri Konsa, who can play on the right as well. In that midfield, now you've got Boubacar Kamara, gotten on free last year, Douglas Luís, John McGinn, you've got Yuri Tielemans, okay? And you've got Jacob Ramsey in there in the midfield as well, and I know he plays a little more advanced.
Yes!
Well, I love that spine.
Good job,
I
man.
love that spine.
Yes.
So good. So good. So we'll see. We'll see. But I as of right now, I expect them to move up the table and not down the table, and up the table from where they were, getting European football. That's pretty big news, considering how competitive the Premier League is right now.
And then goal, Emiliano Martinez, World Cup winner too. So those three in front of Emiliano Martinez, Diego Carlos, Pau Torres, and Mings. Oh my days! Any forward is gonna have trouble passing through those physical center backs. Oh my days!
It's nice.
And then I just want to mention too, City. They got off their interest for Declan Rice, but City said Declan Rice way too expensive. No problem, Gabriel Veiga. 40 million release clause. We pay that for Gabriel Veiga, because Gabriel Veiga, with a coach like Pep Guardiola, is going to become a world-class player. Just like what happened with Rodri. Just like what happened with Gundogan. Just like seems to happen with everyone that Guardiola seems to want. So I just wanted to give that special credit, because next season Man City will have Gabriel Veiga maybe and Kovacic to replace the outgoings of Gundogan and maybe Bernard Silva, because it's still a maybe if he can extend. Big news too for Man City, maybe extending Kyle Walker and Bernard Silva. Very needed. But I wouldn't be surprised if City sells these players to maybe a Bayern Munich, to the Saudi League, or even to Arsenal, because Arsenal even wants Laporte already. We already see a lot of news, Mundo Deportivo, saying that City are willing to sell Laporte to Arsenal.
To Arsenal, that is insane. But it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't moment for Pep, right? Because he knows he needs to continue to refresh the team. But ultimately, you're probably not going to get. I don't know. It's tough to see guys like Bernardo Silva maybe exiting. But when it comes down to it, Gabri Veiga, your pursuit of Gvardiol, I don't know. I in the U21 Euros, okay, has Sergio Gomez shown you enough to maybe be given more of a chance with Manchester City, or do you think it just maybe a higher end loan next season?
I think he's a super sub that can play at fullback. We saw that Anderlecht great numbers and assists, and we're seeing now for the under-21 Euros for Spain as a winger. Very adaptable. I remember seeing Sergio Gomez playing for Dortmund as a 10 in the youth levels. So this player is so quality and a great versatile player for Guardiola. Like I was saying to you about Arsenal and Chelsea need guaranteed players in their lineup to become a Champions League winning team one day. I see it with City. City in the next 3-5 years, City's going to have Rodri still there. Ruben Dias is still going to be there. You know that Foden's going to be there. Julian Alvarez is going to be there. Maybe Rico Lewis. So a lot of players, a lot of guarantees for the future, which are established players world class. That's what Guardiola managed to build at Man City. So that's why it's such a big job for Poch and Arteta. Wanted to get that comparison too, because Man City is right now at a different level in terms of rebuild. I think it's obvious to say, but it's because of that. The guaranteed players for the future that are world class, in my view of things.
But we'd be having such a different conversation if Arsenal did not start off 2023 with 3 consecutive draws or something, right? For the majority of last season, there were question marks. And it wasn't until Arsenal, cut themselves a little bit and there was a little blood in the water that the Manchester City Sharks took over and became that team and came together. So it's going to be really, again, come together again. I mean, previous to that, there was a lot of worry there. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes. And maybe the beginning of the season, it winds up being the complete opposite. You expect Manchester City to come out just kind of rip-roaring extension of the season, and maybe the same underperformance happens all over again. I agree. Or maybe it's going to be crazy, right? Because in the future, very near future, let's be honest, this is not like a 3 or 4 year from now type of situation. With Kevin De Bruyne missing more and more, it feels, every year, at some point there needs to be the next Kevin De Bruyne in the setup.
Phil Foden must step up. If Phil Foden is the starter for England, and
you just see more from him.
I think that will be the case. I think Phil Foden is growing to that level of player. And right now it's between Foden and Saka in the future of England in terms of best player. And Bellingham, of course. Of course. I wanted to say that. But, yeah, I agree with you in terms of what we're mentioning with Man City and Arsenal. But, again, Pep Guardiola, he's gonna have a big season because, this is what I was trying to say. I was trying to think about, I forgot. Big thing happened in this season, which was the World Cup. And it was very noticeable that the World Cup had an excellent impact for Man City, and it wasn't the best impact for Arsenal. You mentioned a lot. Saliba didn't play a lot. Gabriel Magalhães wasn't the best player. Gabriel Jesus gets injured in the World Cup too. So Arsenal weren't benefited from the World Cup scenario, and Man City was big time. Haaland learned so much with Pep Guardiola during that offseason. Grealish came back more confident. John Stones changed his position to play now more in midfield, which is a genius move and something that the unexpected and only Pep Guardiola did. So I'm gonna give a big credit to Guardiola in his preparation, and he deserved that Premier League title because of that World Cup.
He also had a striker, right? He also had a striker that didn't even take part in the World Cup and that actually got to heal for the most part. And he came back with a vengeance. And what we're even forgetting is that Kevin De Bruyne had, for all intents and purposes, not the World Cup that he wanted with Belgium. In fact, it was a terrible World Cup. And he came back more specifically with a chip on his shoulder. He came back wanting to prove something because if he couldn't prove it with the Red Devils, he was going to turn around and prove it in the Premier League. And that's exactly what De Bruyne came back, because second half of the season, 2023, second half of the season, Kevin De Bruyne was a different Kevin De Bruyne.
That's true.
That's
true. So people, put down below your Premier League transfers to watch. We want to see your comments, and don't forget to like this video. But I want to say, starting transfers that you must pay attention, okay, outside of the Premier League. I wanted to say Harry Kane to Bayern Munich, okay? Big attention to this move because Bayern Munich have signed Min-Jae Kim officially. They let go of Lucas Hernandez, so expectations are De Ligt, Upamecano, and Min-Jae Kim. And that's one of the best defenses in the world with Kimmich ahead of him. Ahead of them. Unreal options that they have. And if Harry Kane goes to Bayern Munich with Alphonso Davies, Jamal Musiala, Kimmich, this brand new defense, they are Champions League contenders. If that happens, they're definitely going to win the Bundesliga 13th time in a row. And when Harry Kane wins the league title. So that's what Bayern are desperate for Harry Kane. Just like Arsenal were for Declan Rice. Because it's a game-changing move. I even see Alphonso Davies to Real Madrid use already. So the Bayern board must be fuming. Yeah. Fuming. No Champions League, no party.
Poor Fran Garcia, right? Alphonso Davies, right? He's a left back or right back or both.
Yes, he's a left back. It's poor Fran Garcia.
He is a left back.
It's poor Fran Garcia.
Oh my goodness. But, well, one of mine in terms of outside of things, I have to mention. We mentioned them earlier, right? In the Premier League, but RB Leipzig. Okay, if you want to know, what is right in football right now, in terms of the scouting department, in terms of getting players that generally outperform, develop well, are part of a culture that they want to learn and they want to get better. You just have to watch who RB Leipzig buys, and in turn, maybe take a look around at RB Salzburg quite a bit, right? Holland, Szoboszlai, they all went up the pyramid and wound up, well, we know where Holland wound up at Dortmund, but Szoboszlai at Leipzig. And right now, RB Leipzig is doing their best to continue to replace these stars. And they have only just begun because they have quite the transfer kitty to work with. But they brought in Fabio Carvalho on loan from Liverpool. Definitely need to watch that because it, to me, has Ademola Lookman not at Leipzig, but Ademola Lookman at Atalanta vibes to me. I think Fabio Carvalho should do very, very well in the Bundesliga. But the one that I really, really like is a guy that has not been given much credit just yet, but he definitely should be given credit for the Austrian revival under Ralf Rangnick, and that's Christoph Baumgartner. 23-year-old midfielder, kind of do-it-all type of situation, could play in the 10, played a lot in the 9, I think, actually, for Hoffenheim last season. And and for 20 million, he's a guy that I could see getting picked up, much like a Sabitzer, much like, who was the guy before that in the midfield?
He left for free.
Leimer. Yeah, that's a shame. But yes, Bayern Munich. But he's a guy that could wind up being Bayern next on his list. Young, he's versatile, and a huge impact, and has shown it in the Bundesliga this season. So Baumgartner is like one of their first big additions since they last season brought in Benjamin Sesko, now official, and they brought in Nicholas Sievold. So these are all names. You just got to watch who Leipzig brings in, because they tend to blood the next big young stars until the really, really, really big clubs
That's well said.
Started taking attention. The question I have to ask, though, Leipzig has a whole lot of financial muscle. They're a young team, young heritage. They made their way up, right? What is it going to take for them to be... I mean, they finished, runners-up twice now?
Yep.
In the last 5 years since
back.
And DF Poco, they're taking incremental steps, even amidst the attrition that happens every season on their roster. What is it going to take for Leipzig to take that next step and become a Bundesliga champion?
Could we see RB Leipzig winning the Bundesliga in front of Dortmund? And stop this reign of Bayern Munich? That would be insane. Because both teams, Dortmund and RB Leipzig, focus on the youth and on scouting too. But for me, seeing RB Leipzig in such a short period of time, already winning a back-to-back DF Pokal, that shows greatness of the decisions that they do off. Okay, and Kunku, Szoboszlai, Gvardiol, all are proven players, and they're gonna go bold for whoever gets them. Okay, so I just wanted to give credit to that. And Bayern Munich, don't sleep. They get Limer for free. Rafael Rudd for free. They get Min-Jae Kim. They replace Lucas Hernandez goes off. And now they're going to sign a big boy striker. Bayern Munich means business this next season in the Champions League. Because Kimmich and Alphonso Davies won't be staying long-term if they don't succeed in the Champions League. Or at least convince.
That's true.
Or at least convince. Because if Bayern Munich don't convince Kimmich and Alphonso Davies, we know that these two are going to La Liga. Kimmich to Barcelona and Alphonso Davies to Real Madrid. And a left side with Vini and Alphonso Davies would be scary scenes. Just like a midfield of Pedri and Kimmich there with a Gundogan this season. Oh my gosh.
Nightmares.
My gosh. Gavi in the wing. I'm not forgetting about him. But if we're mentioning La Liga, wanted to say, I'm starting to... it's been an up and down summer with Mbappé. And it's just started. It's just started. But what we understand is if Mbappé is leaving PSG this summer, he's going to earn from PSG more than 200 million. Like, off what he learned from Real Madrid too. So I think Real Madrid, it's just impossible as it seems. So if I were Real Madrid, I would wait for Mbappé next summer because what he's asking is just impossible to get and makes me appreciate much more Jude Bellingham. And I would get on loan with an option to buy Dusan Vlahovic for 80 million option to buy. Because that's what Juve is asking for Vlahovic to leave the club this summer. So I don't think it's the best for Juve. But for Real, I think so.
No. Well, and Juve, I'll talk about Juve in a second. But that's why I mentioned, okay, you brought in, what's his name? Why am I the relegated? Joselu. You brought in Joselu. Okay. And why wouldn't you have gone after Nicholas Jackson for that stopgap? You're paying 45 million less, 50 million less. Well, he's not a replacement striker if he's good enough of 9 in the Premier League for right now. When it comes down to it, he would be their best young striker. He would be the striker. It would be his job to lose for one season until Mbappé comes in. Right?
I agree.
And then you could sell him off for 85 million to Boli or whoever. But it just made more sense, a leap from Villarreal to Real Madrid than Villarreal to the Premier League. At least in my opinion here. And it also makes sense, like, you could have gotten Gabri Vega and Nicholas Jackson for the price of what you might have to pay for Dusan Vlahovic, right?
What option to buy? That's why I think it's a loan, the best thing. If it's a transfer fee, then I'm with you, brother.
Yeah, but
then I'm with you.
Okay.
And that's why I see Harry Kane, Bayern Munich, 70 million. I haven't seen a bid done from Real Madrid to any striker. Because Real Madrid, in their point of view, and my point of view too, it's Mbappé. There's no alternative to Mbappé. It's only a matter of time. So what Florentino needs to do is get the best solution, which I believe is Vlahovic on loan with an option to buy of 80 million. Because even if it works out, he gets the 80 million, and it's an even greater transfer window with Mbappé coming and Dusan Vlahovic then becoming another option. And it would be great for a Serbian striker to succeed after seeing Luka Jovic in the past. That story wasn't the best at Real Madrid. So Dusan Vlahovic would definitely go bold for his teammate, which I believe he's got that potential at 23.
Yeah. Well, you got to think, too, if Mbappe is coming in next season, right, which was, in my opinion, was always the likely possibility. But if Mbappe is coming next season, he's got to have a hand in who likely the next manager is going to be, no?
I agree.
It feels like Zinedine Zidane is coming back.
And the Champions League comes back, too, if Mbappe goes there. Like, honestly, if Jude... I'm excited for Real Madrid next season because of Jude Bellingham learning from Modric and Kroos. Like, they're going to stay another season, and they see a sense of responsibility towards guiding the future of Camavinga, Tchouaméni, Valverde, and Jude Bellingham. Bellingham is a star boy in the making. And I want to repeat, seeing this transfer, Mbappé, saga, this, that, and the other thing, makes me appreciate so much Jude Bellingham. It's in such a short period of time. At 16 playing for Birmingham, then seeking a better future at Dortmund, and then going bold for Dortmund the Champions League and landing a Real Madrid dream move. That he grabbed it straight away. That's why Jude Bellingham is going to be a legacy in football. I believe in it so hard, Breton. I'm a Jude Bellingham fan for towards seeing this Mbappé news. I just hate it. I just hate it. But I understand. Mbappé, he's a business just like Neymar. Like they a lot of intake, so they have a lot of maintenance too. I'm 100% in your camp with the Jude Bellingham thoughts, right? I mean, Jude Bellingham is just made different. Not only to go to Dortmund, it's one thing to do a Jadon Sancho or Christian Pulisic thing and break out and play some of the best football you've ever played and then earn a high-earning move elsewhere, back to the Premier League, right? In Sancho's case. But it's another thing for Jude Bellingham to go in there and literally become the leader of the squad. It's true. Right? It's the leader of a team, for all intents and purposes, at 19, had their hands on the trophy, and it slipped through their fingers, and he failed, and it'll continue to have this chip on his shoulder, but he didn't even get to play. Those last 4 vital games, he didn't even get to play. So he's going into, Real Madrid. He's going into that with this, like, he needs a trophy. He wants a trophy, that's why I think they've kept everything intact at Real Madrid. What's going to happen this coming season if they lose? I mean, you might have to, we're not talking about the history of Florentino Perez. All I was simply talking about was this past season has got to weigh heavily on him, considering what the expectation was coming into it. Coming off of the Champions League win, coming off of a La Liga win, and then failing in pretty much all regards, but ultimately still being able to build a team and not being negatively affected by that at all to build the team of the future for Real Madrid. So if it happens again, sir, we're going to have issues. We're going to have issues, but he'll stay. He'll stay. But I believe that there's going to be issues because he has to match the greatness of Mr. Santiago Bernabéu, Florentino Perez. But people, put down below your transfers that we haven't mentioned with Real and all the teams we mentioned previously. But under 23 transfers, we're focusing on Jude Bellingham. Real Madrid, they've gotten this transfer window. Jude Bellingham, Fran Garcia. They brought back Brahim Diaz, a youngster too. So they're clearly thinking of the future. And if they get Dusan Vlahovic at 23, that would be a long-term great transfer in my view, as a loan option to buy. In my point of view. But Fran Garcia, this is what I wanted to say, Spain youngsters, not named Pedri, Gavi, and Balde, which they're full attention. There's transfers that are going to be done with Fran Garcia, Gabri Vega, Jeremy Pino, Arnau Martinez, Juan Miranda. There's a lot of talent in the Spanish national team, so pay attention to the future. Even two of Sporting Club Braga, Victor Gomez and Abel Ruiz. And it's mad that Braga have two players for Spain playing in the under-21 European tournament. So I just want to give a special mention to that. I was seeing it what?
Spain looks good too. Spain looks very good.
It's a good team.
Yeah. Well, we talked about RB Leipzig. We talked about Serie A. Okay, and this I got to go to the Serie A right now, just because we've talked about Serie A clubs basically getting poached for talent. You're talking about Vlahovic going to La Liga right now, and there are a lot of clubs, even the biggest clubs in Serie A, are dealing with financial fair play holes. And when I was looking into U23 transfers and things that kind of went under the radar this particular offseason, even though we're not even a few days into the actual transfer window, I was shocked to see what I saw at AS Roma. Okay, so this is more, we have to watch it because it became a necessity. AS Roma were forced to sell off two of their top prospects, simply because of an FFP compliance situation that I believe at one point was people were looking at Tammy Abraham as satisfying that, right? Come play a few years. He was balling out for a while. Hell, they went to a European final. They won the Conference League 2 years ago, and then he had that nasty injury this past season, okay? So when that was gone, it kind of saddens me to see that Mourinho and AS Roma have to somewhat mortgage their future by selling off guys like Benjamin Tahirovic to Ajax. Ajax is getting a phenomenally sweet deal in this particular situation.
Ndika.
Midfielder, Bosnian international. They're only paying $7.5 million for him. On top of that, Christian Volpato was just sold to Sassuolo for $9 million. I mean, these are guys that if they were blooded into the first team, much like Eduardo Bove, and who's the Polish fullback?
Zalewski, great player.
Yeah, Zalewski, Nikola Zalewski. If they were to be given 1 or 2 seasons and actually blooded in by Mourinho, because they were, I believe Volpato had 9 or 10 appearances for them, a couple goals for AS Roma this season, they would probably be 35 million out the door.
I don't know.
Right? But it feels like they're getting rid of these players. They have to get rid of these players. And it's a pervasive theme in Serie A right now that there's just more going out than there's more going in.
I agree.
As it stands.
I agree. And those youngsters, unfortunately, had to leave. But it's all about, will Dybala stay? I saw that they didn't opt to get Wijnaldum, which I think was good. Right. And Ndika is coming in. Usam Aouar is not a youngster anymore, but he was. No. And he was referred so much to go to the Premier League back in the day. But I think Roma, they're looking for the future. And I think if they keep José Mourinho, it will be another interesting season, seeing what they can do. But I wanted to ask you. Sorry.
Yes.
I wanted to ask
I was just going to say, you can make the argument.
Like a youngster. Arda Guler, which he's dominating the news now. Every top team wants him.
Well, it seems like Barcelona's actually made some progress.
Oh, and Barca, Laporte mentioned Arda Guler. I was shook by seeing that. But to sign him, it's £17.5 million in release clause. And then agent fees, they're costly too, which they can lead up to 25 to 30 million. But the 18-year-old Arda Guler has a world-class potential. And Barca want and need a player like him to compete with Gavi. As it seems. It seems.
Is there a guarantee he'd do well in La Liga?
I think the style of play of Xavi would do good with Arda Guler. In my opinion. And to see like the future of Real Madrid with Camavinga, Tchouaméni, Jude Bellingham now. Like, they need to compete with that Barca. And Gavi, Pedri, outstanding. But bringing in an Arda Guler, Vitor Roque too, to compete with Hendrik at the other side. It's interesting. It's moving pieces for the future. And quality pieces too. Because we both love Arda Guler. And his dribbling is quite special. His dribbling is quite special. And he's got 4 goals, 3 assists in the Turkish league. So he's showing progress.
I do believe Arda Guler also is very loyal to Fenerbahce, right? The team that gave him this chance. And if we're thinking he's really going to go for 17.5, I don't see it. I think Arda Guler is going to make it his point to make sure Fenerbahce gets paid as much as we think he's probably worth, as much as a true Wonderkid. But they can negotiate previous to it. And I know that there's been insinuations that he would negotiate previous to it so that there is no necessary release cost. He's not going for 17.5. I can guarantee that he is not going for 17.5.
To Fenerbahce?
So,
I think so.
Now,
I think so.
But if you want to talk about that, there's also the buyback clause that is apparently in Xavi Simons' contract as well, right? Have you heard about this?
Yes, PSG.
So where it's only say PSG could buy him back for 6-7. And that is just goes to show you what PSG actually thought the likelihood was, right? And how much of a flyer it was when PSV took on Xavi Simons. There was no understanding for PSV Eindhoven that Xavi Simons would come in and become as important and as breakout potential and Eredivisie dominating as he became, right? But they would have never agreed to a 6-7 million euro buyback clause.
I agree.
Right? For PSG. So if it comes down to it, I believe I can't see Xavi Simons going back to PSG, but how do you compensate them for not?
But
for
that's
that,
interesting.
Right?
Xavi Simons, true. I think PSG, I think it's 12.5 million to the buyback clause that PSG just have to pay to PSV. Well played. Well played by PSG by just having that. But PSG midfield for the future, Ugarte, CDM, Vitinha, box to box, and Zaire Emery, which he's so young, youngest player to start in the Champions League. And then if you manage to add a Xavi Simons, That would be insane. Sherendur, I saw that they signed him on a free. Kangin
They
Lee
did.
to play on a wing. Asensio to add experience. Milan Skriniar and Lucas Hernandez center-back options to play with Marquinhos. Look, PSG could surprise people. I do not believe that PSG is a Champions League contending team next season, but you gotta work step by step. And Luís Henrique, Ugarte, Vitinha, like these, Zaire Emery, Kangin Lee, Ekitike, hard name to say, but a lot of youngsters. Exactly,
Yep.
a lot of youngsters to work towards. And it's going to be interesting just to pay attention to PSG with Luís Henrique.
Yep. And Gaultier is still not out the door just yet.
Whoa,
so
he's in prison, man.
He's not. I don't know if he's actually in prison. I know he was arrested, but he is. I understand. Wow. I understand, Alex. I understand. And we don't need to talk about why, and it's pretty terrible.
Really
but yes, he has not. He is still getting paid, buddy. He's still getting paid.
I don't think Gaultier for sure will not coach PSG. And
he
was not a good manager. He was not a good manager.
Well, now that we know what we know, but on the surface, he won Lyon out from under what PSG did, right? What PSG was doing. So ultimately, yes, there definitely was some managerial prowess at some point. Did he go about it the right way in terms of talking about the composition of his players and stuff like that? No, absolutely not. The guy ended up being a turd of a human being, I guess. I don't know. But when it comes down to it, it's who's next, right? Who's in the door, and it's Luís Henrique. So playing the young players is going to be interesting. I for one will pay more attention to PSG if it's not a foregone conclusion that they're going to buy and win Ligue 1 every season. I'm excited to see a non-Messi, non-Neymar, non-Mbappé run, those three together, run PSG, where it's Champions League or bust every season. Whether or not the supporters are, I don't know. I don't know how they feel about this coming in, but Luís Henrique is a step in the right direction, is it not?
I agree. And I would totally agree with you too that Liga, like in the past, you would have a Lyon that would be much stronger. A Marseille. Lyon was like dominating in the past. They were the PSG a couple of years ago with Gourcuff. Benzema was even there. So many youngsters. But PSG, I think they're going to dominate next season with Luís Henrique. I think he plays a very dominant style of play. And I'm dying to see who they get for striker too. Because I think they're going to sign a big striker. And if they sign Bernard Silva, whoa! Oh my gosh, I'll be so surprised. But under 21 ballers that we see in the Euros, we got Ryan Cherki from Lyon, Lukeba, Amin Gouiri, Barcola. I was quite surprised with Barcola. Great player. Zeki Abdouni, João Neves. Help me out if you... Jacob Ramsey. James Trafford.
I'll just go back to
Sergio Gomez.
Just go back to our last podcast. We lay them all out for you.
But we forgot some. Baturina even played really well for Croatia. So a lot of players in the under 21 Euros.
Yeah, but you did mention a common ingredient there, and quite a few of them, and it's nice to see this again because it hasn't been the case over the last 5 or 6 years. It's nice to see Lyon leaving a footprint within the youth, right? Within the Bluettes, right? The U21 Euros, and Barcola is great, right? Ryan Cherki is going to be fought over probably for the next few years if he continues this ascent. But that back line, right? Sinali Diamonde, you've got who else? Castello Luqueba, Saïl Koumbedi, Maxence Cacare, and there's just a lot of good stuff going on. I would love to see a refresh of Lyon, but that was also like lightning. I don't think lightning's going to strike twice, man. I mean, Benzema, some of those guys, Malouda, some of those guys that came out of Lyon back in the day, that was just a crazy, crazy time because to do that, what they did, that domination with what Lyon did back then was so much more impressive than PSG's domination over the last 10 years.
It's
so much more impressive.
Definitely different. Like a Benzema came off the ranks. Yeah. But Ryan Cherki, I really believe Ryan Cherki using that number 10 for France, I have full vibes that he's going to play for Real Madrid one day. I understand Zidane wanting him in the future, and if Zidane's the manager, even more possibilities for Ryan Cherki to join in the near future Real Madrid. He has to go bold in Liga We got to see big numbers in Liga, and that happens. Oh, it's just Argelian too, just like Benzema. That would be mad. But I want to say João Neves went so bold in the under 21 Euros. Benfica with Gonçalo Ramos, João Neves, António Silva. Like, Florentino Luís, a lot of teams want Florentino Luís for the CDM role. So, made in Seixal keeps on delivering with Roger Schmidt as the manager, with the Enzo Fernandez sale in January. And mentioning, I want to say Koksu. Koksu, one of the top signings in this transfer window. Outside of the top 5 leagues, definitely one of the best transfers. And 2, Benfica. So, next season, João Neves, Orkun Koksu, Florentino Luís, maybe a Di Maria, mixing in the scheme of things too. So it's going to be very interesting. I wanted to see that. And Gonçalo Ramos is still in the market.
It's going to.
He's
still on the market. You think and that's the thing. Striker is a hot commodity all across the board right now. You'd think there'd be more brewing there. But they might be doing it, in international spy-like fashion, keeping it all under the radar.
The moment Harry Kane leaves, we're going to know what happens to Rasmus Winterholen and to Gonçalo Ramos afterwards too. Because the team that wants him, that want them, it's Real Madrid, it's Bayern Munich, it's Man United, it's PSG. The domino effect will start then when they see that they cannot get Harry Kane. So that's what things are going to be interesting.
Yeah, speaking of domino effect, I mean, we've talked about it the last few times about where I'd like the American internationals to wind up, and we've got our first answer, one of our first big answers, and that is Timothy Weah will join Juve, or has joined Juve, which I think is an intriguing. Whether or not you think he's replacing Cuadrado or trying to, or replacing Di Maria or trying to, it's still an interesting move because he could play any of those spots, right? And he will be great for them on the right side. He can play on the left. He can play up top. So as far as Allegri goes, as far as Juve goes, it works. But that's actually not the okay. AC Milan has decided that they might want to go American, right? And there has been talks to bring in Yunus Musa. There has been talks to bring in Christian Pulisic, and there's been talks to bring in Tyler Adams. Now, I think probably one of those 3 are the only ones that get done, but they're all cash strapped. The one that makes the most sense is exactly who you just laid into, and that is Yunus Musa. I think he works for that particular system, especially if there's a certain
Tonali replacement.
Tonali that is leaving, yes, which is not guaranteed, but it is pretty much close to guaranteed. I think there's just a delay on announcing it for some reason. So anyway, Yunus Musa would be a great lower cost because you're coming from Valencia that needs it, and he'd be a wonderful position. And you know what? A wonderful, not upgrade, but a wonderful project for Milan to have in there. But if they can get Pulisic too, to go with Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who they just brought in, another utility man, I don't know. These could wind up being very, very shrewd, well done value plays for AC Milan in the future. It's just still need a striker.
Trust the youth.
Still need
trust the youth. If Tonali's leaving, trust Yunus Musa. Loftus-Cheek, I know he's not a youth player, but Loftus-Cheek, he still plays with the ambition of proving himself. And that's what a youngster needs to do. Like, Loftus-Cheek, no joke, is one of the most talented box-to-box midfielders I've ever seen in academy football. I really believe that. And if AC Milan get the best Loftus-Cheek, they can get a great player to compete in the Champions League one day.
It's injuries, man. It's just injuries.
It's going to Inter.
I
think Inter are getting the best players, honestly. Inter are getting Thuram. Inter are now getting Frattesi. Players want to play at Inter. So it's not looking too good. I just wanted to say on the under 23 transfer scheme of things, my last thing I want to say is pay attention to Arthur Vermaelen, of Royal Antwerp, 18-year-old midfielder. Whoever gets him, they get a talented midfielder that can immediately have an impact in their first team. Like, Royal Antwerp hadn't won a Belgian league since 1957, and he was a key player for them in midfield. So pay attention to him.
Huge breakout. But you also got to give out a shout out to Toby Alderweireld, right? Because he's the reason why Royal Antwerp won. that he kept that together. But Arthur Vermeer and his breakout was absolutely just massive. So under 23, it's not quite that. Sticking in the Serie A, the last shout that I have here is actually not a player signing. I was shocked to see this, and I'm a little worried about it from a Napoli perspective. But the architect a lot of these Napoli moves, okay, is a guy named Cristiano Giuntoli. And Giuntoli just left for Juve. For Juve. And he deserves a massive amount of credit beyond De Laurentiis, right? Deserves a massive amount of credit for building that Scudetto winning team last season, because the seeds of that were 4 years ago. It started with him selling off Gonzalo Higuain for 90 million plus, him selling off Jorginho for 60 million plus, him selling then off 2 seasons ago or 1 season ago off Insigne, him selling off who are they, Mertens and some of the other ones, and Koulibaly, yeah, and him having the cojones to do that, and then to bring in well-scouted individuals that all panned out from places you wouldn't have expected them to come from, like Dinamo Batumi, that is pretty amazing. So if you want a grain of excitement for Juve, the sanctioned Juve that is having to deal with that right now, again, if you want a back office win, that is your back office win right now. So I am going to be watching Juve a lot more, not just because Timothy Weah is going to be patrolling the right side, but also because Giuntoli is in the house, and I am excited to see if he can replicate the success that he had with Napoli and maybe bring Juve back to their dominance. Who knows?
George Weah said in 2017, Juve is my favorite team since I was a child. So now seeing Timothy Weah joining Juventus, I'm hyped because for the U.S. men's national team, Weah consistently goes bold. So I want to see him go bold at the club level with Juve too. Woo! Great mentions. Great mentions. But now, alternative leagues, wanted to mention stuff about the MLS and to the Saudi League. On the MLS side, I wanted to say I fully believe Inter Miami are going to convince Jordi Alba and Sergio Ramos to join Busquets and Lionel Messi with Tata Martino coaching. Already, these 4 players are going to be there. And in the near future, Luís Suarez will be joining after leaving Grêmio as a legend too. So go bold, Inter Miami. That's my first shout out. Wanted to
you can go as bold as you want, but my goodness. I think some Inter Miami fans are going to want some youth in there as well, because there's no guarantee that those guys win anything, albeit it is very interesting. And not only that, you ready for this? They promised 3 signings, of which Jordi Alba is likely one of them. They promised 3 signings by July 15th. So we're talking about less than 2 weeks from now. Less than 2 weeks from now, you're going to see Inter Miami starting to be built out considerably for the second half of this season. But it interests me. It interests me a lot. Like, why are we bringing in the 30-plus-year-olds into? I don't know. I don't know. I'd like
Brenner in the past, Magno. I do believe more youngsters are gonna come to the MLS. I do believe.
And why not to Miami?
Why not to Miami? And to Miami. I want to see Messi there. I believe that.
Bring in who's the next Messi in Argentina? Right? See if you can pry away. There's no way in hell. But see if you can pry away Gianluca Prestiani and bring him in. He's not the next Messi. There's nobody that's the next Messi. But bring in someone like a Prestiani if you can. If Thiago Almada was on the same team as Lionel Messi, I would be here for that every day of the week, right? But with that said, it makes it. Jordi Alba's still got tank. You know, he's got gas left in the tank. Busquets got gas left in his tank, I'm sure. It's a new adventure. I'm here for it. It's not going to break the bank of Inter Miami's ownership group. Messi is going to, speak to that. But ultimately, it's going to bring more eyeballs to South Florida and more eyeballs to Major League Soccer in general in a very, very key window of massive years ahead. So
it's true. We'll and I'm mentioning eyeballs and transfers too. I said MLS with the Saudi League, and a youngster that's picked the Saudi League. We know the money is a huge influence to that, but Al Ittihad have signed Benzema. They've signed N'Golo Kante, which N'Golo Kante's already bought a club too with the third division in Belgium. But they're going to sign to Jota for 30 million from Celtic, a player that is still a youngster, and Benfica's even going to get 9 million because of that deal. So seeing Al Ittihad, they're investing big time. In the Saudi League, the top three teams in the Saudi League, Al Ittihad, Al Nassr, and Al Hilal, all three are coached by Portuguese managers. Nuno Espírito Santo, Luís Castro now, and Jorge Jesus. 6 managers are already in the Saudi League. Huge influence already. Oh, meu Deus. And Luís Castro leaves Botafogo. That's in first place. Botafogo fans are so unlucky. They got to pray on thinking Swatch to still maintain that boldness. But he leaves Botafogo to go to Al Nassr. Oh, my God. Insane. Al Nassr signed Cristiano Ronaldo. They now get a new manager with Luís Castro. They can sign Sekou Fofana, which he was in the team of Ligue 1. Best team of the season of Ligue 1. They signed Brozovic already too. Oi, the transfers. Bono maybe for goalkeeper with Ospina. Insane. Al Nassr, they really want to win that World Cup of clubs one day.
Yeah, and I believe every team in the Saudi Pro League they get 8 foreigners. So this ain't done yet. Right? It's nowhere close. But Al Hilal is the most successful team in Saudi history, and they are the most successful team of recent times. So I'm thinking, and that's the one that Jorge Jesus signed for. So you've got Kalidou Koulibaly, you've got Ruben Neves. So it's going to be. It'll be very, very interesting. But this is not done. The spigot is not on. It's just interesting that Chelsea has the direct line to them, but come on, nobody wants to take Harry Maguire for Man United. Man United can't get a sale to a Saudi team. Arsenal can't get a sale to a Saudi. No, I'm just kidding. But
Harry Maguire to the Saudi League. That would be the dream of Man United fans to get rid of it.
That would be hysterical. Yeah.
But Jones could be going. You never know. Phil Jones, he's leaving. A legend of Man United. But the pull, speaking about Premier League legends, Roberto Firmino has gone to the Saudi League, which that's a big deal. N'Golo Kante left Chelsea, but I understand. The Saudi League's attracted Cristiano Ronaldo, Benzema, N'Golo Kante, Firmino, Mendy, Koulibaly, Jota, Ruben Neves. The list goes on, and managers Luís Castro and Jorge Jesus, which is the second time of Jorge Jesus, which he won the league when he was there. he won the league back in the day, 2018.
It's interesting. It's interesting. And for those that don't necessarily know, it's 4 clubs within the Saudi Pro League that have received this injection of cash. And those are where all of these signings are necessarily coming into. And the 3 we just talked about are 3 of those 4. The majority of them are the most successful in the AFC Champions League and in the domestic league. So listen,
the 4 teams
they are out there. There's 2 in Jeddah, which is the second biggest city in Saudi Arabia, and there's 2 in Riyadh, which is obviously the largest in Saudi Arabia. But you've got Al Ittihad, you've got Al Ali, which was just promoted this particular season. That's owned 75% of the public investment fund. You've got Al Nassr, and you've got Al Hilal. Al Hilal, if I didn't already mention them. So, 2 in the largest ones, and then Al Jebba. Al Jebba, is that what it's called? Yeah, is the other one you want to watch, because they are going to be the ones that did not necessarily get the injection from the public investment fund that's going to want to keep up, because they've been successful as all get out in the Pro League. They've been very successful in recent years. So it's going to be interesting to see how they, why those 4 out of all the clubs. But ultimately, this is very much scraping the surface. So I have a feeling we are going to be name dropping for the rest of the summer, and then some. But most importantly, what this has actually allowed me to do, Alex, is I've always wanted a reason to go in and study more about AFC Champions League, because you're talking about just a massive, massive part of the world, massive part of the world that has this. Yes, there's a lot of money, but it has this culture. It has that definitely from the Western Hemisphere perspective, I don't know enough about it. And I am excited to get to know not just the teams of the Saudi Pro League that we are attracted to because Ruben Neves is going there, because other teams are going there, but also seeing, more eyeballs on the J League, on the K League, the Korean League.
Player, the Brentford center back just signed. A lot of people are saying that he's one of the best South Korean players in recent years. So the scouting
so much talent.
They're happy.
Yeah, so much talent yet untapped. And we got to remember where Matoma came from. We got to remember where some of these guys came from. But it will be interesting to see if the Saudis can take back the power dynamic in the AFC Champions League, which I believe the South Koreans and the Japanese have been very good at. And we've all seen that the scouting departments all across Europe, in particular, have been very, very in tune now with the J League. Most specifically, bringing in a lot of these players that we could list here. So I'm most excited to see how this shapes our attention beyond that, because that's what it's all about. It's about attention and them getting more eyeballs on hopefully building it out. And Ronaldo believes, in his heart of hearts, he believes that if with the proper investment, not just in players coming in, but in infrastructure in Saudi Arabia, Cristiano Ronaldo has said that he thinks the Saudi League could be the top five within the next 5 years.
That's a bold statement.
I think that's a little ambitious of Cristiano Ronaldo to say that.
Cristiano Ronaldo. That's that 20 billion investment in football.
It's pretty big. It's pretty big. So we'll see what happens.
But people...
One last mention.
Yes.
One last mention, not of the Saudi, to go back to Major League Soccer, the other side of the planet. There was something that happened, not just Tata Martino coming in, but I have to mention Lionel Messi was least successful, if I recall, under Tata Martino. That does need to be said. It does need to be said. Because there were some, it wasn't always rosy. It wasn't always great under Tata Martino. But Tata Martino is the right hire. He knows MLS. He's won with Atlanta United. He has won since Major League Soccer has started opening up the purse strings and spending more, right? And I have a feeling that Tata Martino, not just because Leo Messi is there, but I have a feeling Tata Martino will know how to navigate the weird labyrinthine rules that are Major League Soccer. So I think more Martino than Messi is actually the reason why Inter Miami could win an MLS championship in the future. Because Martino knows how to navigate it.
That'd be the MLS champion. That Inter Miami with Messi, that's the storyline. Imagine in the FIFA Club World Cup, we see a matchup in the knockout stages between Inter Miami with Tata Martino and Lionel Messi and Luís Castro with Al Nassr with Cristiano Ronaldo. Everybody would be tuning into the FIFA Club World Cup. Historic numbers. And I do believe
you're coming here for that, right?
Yeah.
You're joining me? Okay.
I would Ronaldo, Barola, and Messi. That would be insane. Yep. The battle of the GOATs. But people, put down below what do you think about the Saudi League, the MLS, and any other league that's developing like the J League. If you want more videos just like this video. And if you're listening to the podcast until now, 1 hour and 20 minutes have passed. And thank you, people, for tuning in to podcast 112 here at FC Wonderkid. Thank you for going bold another weekend.